Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I am going to discuss tariffs, trade, and Black women, the turning policy into power. I am definitely going to work on a mic. I just felt it to just start, putting stuff out there that has been on my mind for a very long time. So please excuse me that my mic isn't as strong right now because I don't have a real true setup at my home. I'm just more of a developing and doing all other things. So I don't really I'm not into like I guess truly trying to podcast and stuff like that. But I will work on a better mic so that I'm more clear and I don't sound like I'm, far back or anything like that. But today I wanted to focus on tariffs, trade, and Black women turning policy into power. Now, this presentation, um, the reason I thought of this because I want Black women, and again, this is for anybody. I'm just talking as a Black woman to Black women so that we can recognize our unique situation and help each other heal and continue to move forward. Now, I thought of this because, I try to be unbiased in the way I allow media to, um, in the way I consume media, meaning that I am aware of both sides, whether they call it liberal or democratic media versus Republican or conservative media, because both sides will come with a lot of bullshit. Sometimes it's just about political theater. It's about omitting stuff, lying. Someone really wanted to play the word game with me, but omitting stuff so that the public who may not go after this information, may not seek out to understand it. So it takes people like myself and other people to really try to break down um, the understanding to a level that not only I can understand, but other people can understand. Now, I only did this presentation because I want Black women to just totally understand the landscape. Again, I want to paint a picture so that you can understand the playing field and where to go and where we're at right now as American women and how we can take advantage of this time. I'm a very optimistic thinker, so I try not to think negative about doom and glooms or any of that stuff. I think as a child, when I was going to church and the whole propaganda of Jesus coming back and the rapture, now you're seeing that stuff blow up, right? But I remember, that was, to me, I felt it was a scare tactic, not only for people who are in church, but especially if you're a young kid hearing that, and you're thinking like, man, the rapture is going to happen. I'm just a little kid. I didn't do anything or whatever. You're really, they put fear into you. I guess it's the quote unquote fear of the Lord, right? But I like to stay in reality. I like to work in reality. And again, like I said, I am spiritual, but not in the sense of a Christian or Muslim or any of that type of stuff. But I still don't believe in, um, you know, leading off of just this blind faith or anything like that. I like to look at our reality. Okay. So what I'm presenting to you is not from maybe a feel good perspective. I don't want you to just feel good about this. I want you to take this information in, sit on it, and then figure out how you can utilize this information to better your life for yourself and your children, right? So today we're just not talking about tariffs as abstract trade policy. We're breaking down how tariffs shape the economy, labor markets, and the everyday opportunities available to Black women. From the history of American manufacturing to modern immigration policy, we'll unpack the strategic openings that tariffs create for us as entrepreneurs, workers, and wealth builders. This isn't doom and gloom economics, this is a power playbook. Tariffs are often framed as political chess moves between nations. But at their core, tariffs are about who America chooses to protect and prioritize foreign producers or domestic labor. For Black women who have been systematically excluded from capital access and overlooked in supply chain development, tariffs can create new lanes of entry. If we understand the history and seize the opportunities in front of us. So, again, we know there's systemic stuff, but we have to be sure, again, when we're voting, when we're looking at politicians and candidates, we got to make sure that if they are American first, because anything American first has to benefit you as a Black woman living here in America. So that's why, being emotional in your votes, letting people just say anything will not cut it moving forward. You have to understand this information so that you're better informed to make decisions. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the history of American manufacturing. Because if we're paying attention to what's going on, that seems to be what the current administration wants. Now, again, I like to remove the MAGA people. I like to remove any type of racial undertones or, people who are on podcasts giving their racial opinions, any of that stuff. Um, it's just something you can listen to, right? But if we are staying in alignment, we got to understand um, where we were as America. Now, again, Black people, we had different experiences here. So I'm not trying to promote this as, oh, we lived so great during this time. But I'm saying, as Black women, we have to understand we've been working for a very long time. And we have to think about aligning with America first, right? So let's talk about a little bit of American history. Now, American production has always been the backbone of this nation. From the early textile mills of the 1800s to the Gilded Age, railroads to Ford's automobile assembly lines, manufacturing was where America flexed its global dominance. And let's be clear, Black labor was central to every stage. From enslaved cotton pickers fueling the textile boom, to Black men and women working in Detroit's auto plants, to Rosie the Riveter era Black women on World War II assembly lines, we built the country's factories too. The US dominated global production well into the 20th century, but globalization shifted the map. By the 1980s and 1990s, free trade agreements and outsourcing led to US factories shuttering and jobs shipped overseas. Okay? Understand that era. Now, again, just to pause here for a second. A couple of slides, presentations ago, I spoke about what was going on, let's say the late 70s into the 90s in the Black community specifically. We had Black exploitation films, so pimping, women, prostitution picked up as far as in our culture, the internal culture. We're not going to listen to people who are in a subset of our community um, try to shun that away, right? We're going to stick to non emotional facts. Then you had the crack era coming up, right? So a lot of destruction. Even again, you had systemic stuff happening, but internally, these were things our own culture started to produce and promote. Free trade agreements and outsourcing led to US factories shuttering, and jobs shipped overseas. Communities like Detroit, Cleveland, and Gary, Indiana, heavily populated by Black families, were left devastated. Tariffs today represent one of the few tools America has to reassert domestic production. And that matters deeply for Black women who are ready to lead in the next wave of entrepreneurship and supply chains. So, again, if you do not understand tariffs, you don't have to be this finance guru. You don't have to be someone who knows, international trade, anything like that. I'm not even an expert on that. I try to go out and understand it enough so that I can form myself a better opinion. And I don't try to take any side, right? I try to understand both sides so that I can formulate my own opinion and strategies on what I want to do next, right? So this is what I'm doing. I'm pretty much just laying this out as I would lay it out for myself to make a better informed decision on how I want to move forward. Okay. So we know manufacturing has been a thing in America, and we've seen the devastations in those particular cities here in America when all of that left, because now it's about cheaper labor, for America. First, it was bringing in immigrants. Then it was, well, we're gonna take everything and ship it to another country. Now things were changing. You got to understand things are going to change always. Humans, we always made new tools. We always want to enhance our lives. That's just what it is. So things are going to change. But and when I mean I'm optimistic, I try to see that change ahead of time, right? I try to see an outlook. Again, I'm not some big investor, but I understand the mindset of an investor, the mindset of someone who's just looking forward based on patterns and practices that you may see or that may be coming up. Okay. Now, here are some basics about tariffs. A tariff is simply a tax on imports. They can be taxed on exports as well, but our current administration is focusing on imports, meaning our current administration wants to produce whatever that's being imported. Our administration has to have the thought process. They must believe that we can produce, manufacture, and process those items here, those products, services, whatever it is. That's their belief. When you're seeing imports being having a tariff tax on it, right? So the goal can be twofold: protect domestic industries from foreign competition, or generate revenue for the government. For example, when the US imposed tariffs on steel, it makes imported steel more expensive, incentivizing buyers to purchase US produced steel. Again, I'm going to read that one more time. It incentivizes buyers to purchase US produced steel. Okay. But tariffs can also raise consumer prices. So the politics around them are always contested. So this is why you see, both sides kind of fighting over the tariffs. Again, if you're not understanding these things for yourself, you may be manipulated to believe something is so horrible or prices are rising. However, you got to understand based on the actions done with previous generations by shipping out this stuff, and again, when we're talking about the Ford car industry, for example, shipping that out to, other countries, that is the why now we're just like, oh, well, things are going to go up or blah, blah, blah. But the actions led to what we have to try to change today. What the current administration is attempting to try to change this today for us, right? So that's why you have some people promoting the propaganda that, oh, it's so bad, the prices are going to rise. You got to understand, some of these people want this type of labor, this cheaper labor, immigrant labor, because they don't understand the landscape of Americans or what we need for ourselves, right? They don't understand the job landscape, the skills gaps that we have, the wealth gaps that we see, continuing to oppress or not care about certain communities. And as Black people, Black Americans specifically, we can't be like that, ladies. We cannot look at it from a we are the world perspective because it is hurting you, and I mean it's hurting you. You can't talk about systemic racism and all that stuff when you're not seeing things from an unbiased viewpoint and making better taking better political actions towards them. Okay, so the debate matters because tariffs shape where industries grow. If tariffs protect sectors like steel, textiles, and semiconductors, that means factories, supply chains, and distribution networks could expand here at home. And wherever those industries grow, there is an opportunity for Black women to get contracts, jobs, and partnerships that have historically been denied to us. So, again, I'm going to lay this out for you, ladies, but these are the opportunity areas that you have to look at. And when I was speaking before about high revenue businesses, meaning so you can go into corporations, nothing wrong with some women who go directly to cooking plates. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm telling you now, we can do way better. You have sisters out here like myself who are into technology. We're in corporate environments, so we know enough. If if we all are paying attention, we know enough how to run corporations and how some of these things work because our jobs literally are to watch over these things or have a part in these things when we're talking about factories, supply chains, distribution, security, all that stuff, right? This is something that's already a part of the work that we do in these corporate environments. So when we're talking about entrepreneurship, we have to understand why imports on tariffs. What is that about? How can I benefit from that? Or am I not benefiting from that? Right? So let's go a little bit deeper into the history, the US history um, on tariffs. Okay? Tariffs are not new. In fact, they were one of the earliest revenue tools of the US government. The tariff of 1789 helped fund the young nation. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff in 1930 raised rates during the Great Depression, sparking international backlash but also fueling some domestic recovery. Throughout the 20th century, tariffs were lowered as globalization rose, culminating in agreements like NAFTA in 1994. But when Donald Trump entered office in 2017, he revived tariffs as a political weapon, targeting China with tariffs on $370 billion worth of goods. Many economists criticize it, but the broader point is this: tariffs became relevant again, and the idea of protecting American industry resurfaced. So that's the underlying thing that this is about. Again, if you take away the MAGA, you take away people who are just intently racist, like they still living in Confederate land, and it's like, dude, this is 2025. If y'all want to be Nazis, let's see if Germany takes you back or whatever. But we got to move forward, right? If we want to get back to America first, we need everybody on deck, pretty much. All hands on deck. Okay, we got to keep it real. So, um, the matters for Black women because the question becomes, who will benefit from this protection? We must ensure it is us. So, this is the opportunity that you, Black women, have to see. You can't see it as, oh, they're just going away with certain programs and this and that. Understand, is it that they are going away from it, or did it benefit other people other than Americans? Now, I like to sit back and observe. I don't like to just jump into stuff, you know. Sometimes I get tempted, but I really like to take my time and understand the landscape, what's going on, because I'm not super into politics, but I understand it enough, and excuse me, how I think strategy wise, how to make moves when you're talking about building, empires, things like that. We have to understand what this is. When we're talking about Americans, men and women suffering from jobs, homelessness has been on the rise like crazy. You got to look at this as, where did this come from and why is this happening? Americans have already been complaining about wages and jobs being shipped out, which hurt certain industries, right? We don't need all these industries back. To think that we need all of them back is, to me, it's no, we don't. We don't need to think about hurting the environment that we have here either. So those are things they are important if we're going to bring these things back, right? We're not looking to just kill people, but we know there may be certain things that are happening in this country that is affecting Americans. And that's what our government has to look at, because if you want all hands on deck, You cannot be terrorizing or letting certain gases and things affect certain communities. Like, come on, you're never going to grow. You're never going to be the power that you think that you are, because you never was the power that you were without black women. Okay, now let's take a more deeper dive. Let's look at the contributions to production from black Americans and black women specifically. When we talk about American manufacturing, we cannot erase black women. During World War, excuse me, during World War II, sorry guys, I am drinking tea and trying to talk at the same time, so excuse me for that. During World War II, black women like the riveting Rosies worked in shipyards, aircraft factories, and ammunition plants while facing discrimination and lower pay. After the war, many were pushed back into service jobs. So that's how, we were coming up, you could say, working in bigger industries, doing more work. But unfortunately, the government at that time, started to continue to push back service jobs. And then when you look at this time period, you got to understand women didn't want to just sit at home all day. Not every woman wants to be a housewife, and we have to understand, if we're not around men that don't understand that, it's not good for them and it's not good for us, right? So all women just don't want to depend on their husbands or their boyfriends or just men in general, because it's not a natural thing. I don't care how much they want to push it or apply a Bible to it. And that's the thing, religion and all that has to, be separate from reality, right? So that's what we see where these service jobs came back, right? Yet their labor was essential to victory. In the auto boom, black families migrated north and staffed the production lines that made Detroit the Motor City. Okay? This history matters because it proves we are not new to production, supply chains, or logistics. I think the issue is we're not pushing our children into these fields and gaining the skills so that they can dominate or get into these industries. Now, voting matters. It matters, right? Audits, all these checks, they matter so that the discrimination is continuing to be watched over. The checks and balances are all there, because unfortunately there's just going to be people like that. It's just people like that. And they, again, I feel people need to be checked into somebody's hospital, but there's just going to be people like that, right? We were never just given ownership. Tariffs today represent a second chance. This is a second chance, black women. So please pay attention here. If the US rebuilds domestic industry, black women entrepreneurs should not just be workers. So we don't want to just be workers this time around, and we damn sure don't want to just be consumers. Okay? We should be owners of contracts, processors, distributors, and manufacturers. So we have to look at what the tariffs are, what are they trying to produce or bring back here, right? And how do we get involved? How do we build our businesses off of those things, right? So let's go to the next slide here. Immigration and labor shifts. So I want to start from the 2008 era. And, I was still kind of, I think, coming out of college during that time. I didn't finish college, but I didn't stop wanting to learn. I didn't stop, trying to pursue something. So I am an engineer today. Because I knew I was going to be an engineer. Other than an entrepreneur, I was like engineer and entrepreneur. And now I'm both, right? So the immigration and labor shift. So let's pay attention to this again. I'm picking 2008 because of the whole housing crash. And a lot of us millennials were still kind of, still into early adulthood. Okay. Since 2008, immigration has played a major role in shaping job availability. Undocumented labor flooded into agriculture, construction, and service work. At that time, H-1B visas brought in high skilled tech workers, often bypassing qualified US talent. For Black women, this meant a double hit, losing ground in both blue collar and white collar markets. For example, the Department of Labor data shows that from 2009 to 2019, immigrant workers accounted for over 45% of growth in STEM fields. Meanwhile, Black women held less than 3% of jobs in computing and engineering. When politicians ignored labor audits and prioritized immigration over citizen training, Black women were pushed further to the margins. Tariffs can help reverse this by forcing companies to reinvest in domestic talent. So, again, Black women, you going to school, getting your degrees, starting your businesses is not in vain. We cannot allow counterparts or people in the community to attack that when it matters to the greater society. It matters to the US economy. It matters to how we stay a superpower here, how we continue to lead in industries across the world, right? There's still a lot of countries who are not developed. Some are coming up. I think our biggest competition is China, right? But some of these communities and countries are coming up. But unfortunately, we focused on immigration and immigrant workers. And now we have this big issue where people are like, oh, don't deport them, or won't we just let them stay here? Blah, blah, blah. That's not the point of it, right? The point is because they shifted that, they have forgotten about the working class of Black women who were working the entire time. There's not a lot of Black women who just did not want to work. I don't care if they want to push the welfare queens or whatever. We know as Black women, there is a subset of Black women who are like that. We know those Black women, right? But we also know there's Black women who have just been working for a long time. We've been engineers, we're still engineers, we're into computing, these jobs in supply chains and distribution. We've tapped into all those things, but because of the policies of some of the parties that were administrations, I'll say, they affected the job outlook. And then let's go back to training. You have this issue that's going around saying, oh, well, you guys are going to feel the pain because you're letting talented immigrants go. Or, there's $100,000 for H-1B1 visas now if companies want to do that. But you got to look at it, Black woman. If you're an American, you got to look at it and you got to understand, is that really harming us as Americans, or is it something there that's trying to tell us there's some opportunities here where there's making way when our administration is saying, hey, you can't, immigrants or undocumented people cannot be using Section 8. They cannot be using certain healthcare systems. Again, this is not just us. Again, we have media that wants to paint the propaganda to say we're xenophobic, all these other things, but there's other countries who are wanting the same. And it's not just European countries that want this as well. Okay. So we got to understand how this affected everyone. Again, when you're seeing Americans even going to other countries, it's because several administrations allow corporations to get out of hand and get out of control. They may have not seen it way back then that this was going to affect how American production and our genius would be affected, right? There are a lot of Black geniuses, especially Black women. There's a lot of us that know what the hell we're doing. We work hard, we study hard, right? We're disciplined. But you can never know that if you're covering that with ratchetness, if you're covering all of that as if all these Black women have low IQs or whatever. You're covering that when you're having your counterparts campaign against you and attack you on every level because of their own issues, right? You're having that cover the Black women who have been working for a long time. Now you have certain immigrants here who are trying to compete against you, and you're still probably the better competitor. I'm just gonna keep it real. You're probably the better competition because you're American and you know a little bit more. If you're being smart, if you're staying smart, and you're working towards the end goal. Okay, so we have to understand why domestic talent is is wanted from this current administration. We have to understand why. Okay. Now let's talk about education, the missed capacity, right? Why? And again, Black women, we go to different universities across America. Okay. But when we talk about HBCUs, we're predominantly in HBCUs. We are the majority at the HBCU, and we take our education seriously more than just trying to find a man, right? It's important that we do that as African American women in our own country. It makes no sense that you go to school and your main focus is supposed to be on your man, you know? It doesn't make sense because you're not seeing your counterparts match up with that when we're talking about them competing against other men. So it's important that you continue to take care of yourself. Okay. So education is key to leveraging tariffs. When tariffs protect industries like robotics, semiconductor chips, or advanced manufacturing, those sectors need trained workers and managers. But HBCUs, where Black women are the majority of students, remain underfunded. The failure to fully fund HBCUs with the 255 million permanent increase secured under Trump in 2019 means we are not producing enough supply chain managers, engineers, and trade specialists. That means the HBCUs we go to need to take a serious look, especially if you're an alumni, take a serious look at the curriculum and say, is this going to actually help me in the world where I'm going to get the jobs in the industries where we need to either dominate or, have people in, so that we know we have our own corporations. And I'm not saying our own corporations where we're just like, oh, it's Black only. I'm saying we need to have more representation, and that means more jobs for people, right? More wealth, closing the wealth gap. This is literally how you can do it. Another area, another avenue. You have people that want to push certain stuff on you, but they don't even do this type of research. They don't try to understand things to say, why did we get here or how did we get here, right? Excuse me, without pulling slavery out the pocket and all this other systemic stuff and reminiscing about old times. But we have to focus on the future. We have to make sure our minds are always focused on the progress forward, Black women. So if tariffs are creating openings for domestic production, Black women are not trained or credentialed for those roles. Then once again, immigrants and other groups will fill the gap. So again, that's the opportunity. You cannot be playing games. You cannot allow people who don't want to support you to be out here campaigning against you. You have to get into these positions and move out of those communities. In my opinion, get the hell out of those communities because it's only crabs in there. It's only crabs, and the crabs don't want you to get out the bucket, right, or the barrel. Tariffs without training policies will simply repeat the cycle of exclusion. So training is very important, Black women. Being an apprentice is important. To disregard that, to think I don't need that, to think oh, I'm holding this position. Some of us, and I'm not gonna lie here. Some of us, we can be good at what we do, but some of us are playing games because we're so worried about other things that should no longer matter to us, in my opinion. That's why advocacy around HBCU funding, trade certifications, and federal training programs is a survival issue for us. So we need to make sure that the training is here. Why not knock on the Republicans' door? Why are you afraid to ask Republicans just as much as Democrats for something, right? So you cannot be afraid to say, yo, investing in us keeps things America first. It truly does, right? Now, some of our schools, we do have immigrants that come to our schools and stuff. But again, based on the current administration, they're making sure people aren't here overstaying their visas. They're not here 20 and 30 years after being told they were supposed to leave the country in the first place. All of these immigration issues sometimes that you're seeing promoted from one side, again, they're omitting information. and I know that for a fact, they're omitting that information about what the detaining is or the arrest of certain immigrants is, right? So this is why we have to restructure, reset ourselves internally, Black women, so that we are prepared for these times. If you ain't gotta get ready if you're already ready. Okay, if you stay ready. I'm just a woman. I love to stay ready. I'm always looking ahead. I'm always like, oh my god, oh my god. This is my field. This is what's coming. I remember when cybersecurity, before I got, became into the position I'm in, I remember it wasn't like as big in probably like early 2016, 2015, and I mean as big as far as how it was promoted and pushed, right? But I knew it was going to be a great career path because we're not. Some countries are still fighting wars with bombs and stuff like that, but that's going to be different. The war is going to be different. Biomedical warfare, media, propaganda, that's been here forever now. You also have, cyber warfare going on. People from all over trying to attack the American, systems, and some of them are so outdated. This is why they need cybersecurity teams or people who are not just here to just put a computer together and set up a workstation or set up a network. Then you have data centers. You have all of these things that are showing the progress of us. And again, we've been doing this for a long time as humans to where we got here. If you go look at the different types of revolutions that we've been through, you can see things have changed over time for humans. But Black women, we have to take what you're doing, your craft, your skill seriously so that you can take advantage of these opportunities. That's what I'm saying. There's really no reason why a Black woman needs to resort to prostitution or any of that stuff. Again, if that's something you just like doing on the side, let it be a side thing. Let it be something like, girl, I like to shake my ass and I like to get paid for it. That's you, right? But in the greater society, it's not too saturated for Black women to take advantage of these opportunities. Okay. So again, demand that the HBCUs, the schools, your local governments are focused on training and schools for training for these certifications and make sure they're America first. That's just what it has to be. Okay, 1 second here. Now we're going to go into a little bit of the tariff landscape. So I'm just going to break down the next few slides just so you can get a little bit more understanding of what it is and what products or services, manufacturing, all that stuff that you can get involved in. So as of 2023, U.S. tariffs remain in place on hundreds of billions in imports. Now, there are dedicated government sites that you can go to so you can see what are the imports on so you can again be ahead of the game. That's how you got to research. That's how you know, because a lot of people ain't gonna do it. They're not gonna do it, but that's how you can know, okay, what has a tariff on it, right? Which imports, and particularly from China. So this is why I'll say Trump has been on China for a long time. He's been on their neck. Okay, he's been on them like white on rice. Okay, for the longest time. And why is that? Because China has provided a lot of productivity goods and services to the U.S. over the past few decades. That's how China literally started to rise more and more, right? And because of that, now they're able to go into other countries. Now they're saying, "Hey, America, we really don't have to deal with you or your dollar." And when you go to countries like China or Japan, you can see they're kind of more advanced than we are. When we're talking about robotics or usage of certain technology, they've been ahead, and it's because America failed to invest in Americans. They failed. They failed to have the training, the skills, and so now we had to rely on immigrants and bringing them here instead of just focusing on skills here. You have immigrants now who think we're not good enough, we're lazy, all these things they make up, but they don't even understand they were also being used. they're being used themselves, right, for cheap labor. These include steel, aluminum, electronics, solar panels, and textiles. Tariff rates range from 7.5% to 25%. According to the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, these tariffs are designed to reduce dependence on Chinese imports and encourage reshoring. So that's the focus. They want to get productivity back here, and Black women have to see the opportunity and how to do that. If you got to learn CAD, 3D printing, all of these things. I remember when 3D printing was new and I was blown away. And, again, I can't do everything. And it does burn me out thinking that I can do multiple things and first getting something established. But when I look at that, I was like, man, and I think I learned about it coming from China, and I remember it was still early 3D printing days, and just to get you a 3D printer. I remember in high school, I took this kind of like this, I don't want to say it was gifted, but you can say it is, but they were just pretty much trying to get certain students into certain career paths early, and I was one of those students who used to get to go there because I was pretty much done with most of my high school courses probably by my junior year. So I was just taking just extra courses. And because I was going to summer school a lot. So when I thought about 3D printing, I was already like, man, what can I print to produce here? Whether it's some type of uh, tool, some type of part, right? That's how you have to think, Black women. How do you get into these things and start producing them so that the productivity stays here? You can own supply chains, distribution, right? Contracts that with these companies to supply them. So that is the big thing. Otherwise, they're going to go to other countries, get it cheaper, and then bring it here and just mark up the price. So even when they talk about the price is going to be crazy high because it's here in America, well, it was already marked up from whatever they bought it from, whatever country they got it from. It was already being marked up more. When you think of drop shipping, you're literally marking up some of those goods, right, to earn you a profit. So the goal of these tariffs, as you see, is reshoring, meaning they want to bring back these things to America. But here's the key question: do we produce these goods in America? The Department of Commerce data shows that yes, we produce steel and aluminum domestically. We produce some textiles, but at much lower value. We do not produce electronics at a competitive scale, which means tariffs raise prices without increasing domestic output. For Black women entrepreneurs, the opportunity is clearest in industries where tariffs both protect and align with existing U.S. capacity, such as steel, food processing, packaging, and logistics. These are areas, Black women who are entrepreneurs, to get into to learn the skills so you can run your own company, your own processing plant, packaging, getting hiring workers to do packaging or getting into robotics so they can do it for you. Logistics has to change. Steel, all this stuff, right? Steel is the backbone of modern infrastructure. And tariffs on foreign steel are not just abstract policy, they are direct signals to American producers to expand. That is the underlying point of this administration. If you stay unbiased, you can understand, hey, it's going to be tough. And I remember when Trump said that, he said, hey, it's going to be tough for a little bit. But I think it's just how they articulate stuff and why it can come off wrong, right? So that's why I'm here, Black women, to help better articulate this for you so you can understand the opportunities that we have that are coming back to America. Under Section 232 tariffs introduced in 2018, imported steel faced a 25% duty. According to the Department of Commerce, U.S. steel imports fell by over 30% between 2017 and 2019, while domestic capacity utilization rose from 73% to over 80%. This means jobs, contracts, and production shifted back onto U.S. soil. Okay? And whose era was that? Who was trying to bring back jobs, bring back production to America? It was not the Democrats, unfortunately. So again, your voting without being emotional matters, right? It feels good to have these skills. It feels good to pass down these things to your kids as well, black women. Okay? But where do black women fit into this? Manufacturing has historically excluded us, but exclusion was never about ability. You have the ability. Affirmative action or what they want to call now DEI, it's because you have, unfortunately, people here who don't practice things correctly. They don't, to me, I feel like they are traitors to Americans, in my opinion. At the end of the day, if you're not invested in American black women, you are a traitor, in my opinion. Black workers helped build Ford's assembly lines in Detroit and staffed World War II munitions plants when America called. Today, tariffs force companies to reshore supply chains. So when you see this pause and this shift, COVID kind of revealed that. When COVID came, the world stopped because America wasn't as productive. To me, that revealed we were behind. There is so much crap, so much being revealed when everything stopped that it's like, damn, America, we are too dependent on certain things. See, ladies, independence, there's not too much wrong with being independent. You get what I'm saying? Being dependent is how we start to screw up America. Homelessness is getting crazy. Crime is more crazy. Counterparts don't know what to do, right? They just following you. Whatever you going in, they gonna follow you. If you make you up something, they gonna follow you and not going to it for the betterment. They just following you. They just want to pretend like they're doing something, in my opinion. But we have to understand that it's not about pretending. It's not about putting on this front, this appearance. It's about understanding the playing field and how do you win the game? How do you strategize? How do you become a better deal maker, right? If we're not teaching that and have that as a practice within our internal community, we're going to continue to fail ourselves and fail the young black women coming up after us. Okay. Now, today, tariffs force companies to reassure supply chains, as I mentioned. That opens rooms for entrepreneurs in materials distribution, supply chain management, compliance consulting, and equipment servicing. That means black women who say, I don't know what I want to do, I don't have a career, or I don't want to do this, whatever. These are more open opportunities for you to take on. Go find these businesses. They ain't going to be black, and that's okay, but you're going to go to them so you can learn. You can learn how to be a supply chain manager, understand more about distributions. Go as an apprentice, go and learn. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. The reason I got to where I'm at is because I learned from other people. I didn't limit myself to say, oh, I'm just going to learn from black people. You're out your mind if you think like that, right? There's nothing wrong with being prideful about your community and who you are, right? I wouldn't want white people to feel that way or Hispanic people feel prideful. But when it comes to us as Americans in general, we're all should be prideful of the general American society and what we do together, right? So, black women with MBAs, engineering backgrounds, or logistics certifications can position themselves as key suppliers and contractors in these reshored industries. The data shows tariffs don't just raise prices, they create American side opportunities where barriers were once impenetrable. So, again, your government can only do so much, but if you're not seeing the opportunity, you're going to fail yourself. You're going to fail yourself, and you're not going to be able to get out of that poverty that you've been drowning in, get off of the welfare that you don't need forever, like your aunts and uncles and all of them are using. You don't need that forever. You have an opportunity to become rich and wealthy and skilled and getting out of that position. You have the opportunity, and this particular administration is trying to bring back that opportunity. So this is why your voting does matter. This is why it matters. If the Democrats aren't seeing it this way, you can't keep voting for them. You can't. You have to see it in a way that it makes sense, right? Cleaning up stuff, resetting stuff. You have to be in alignment with yourself as an American woman. That's what you are. Don't play yourself trying to help the world. Now, let's get into some more um, impacts of tariffs, okay? Tariffs are double edged. Now, on one hand, they protect jobs. The Economic Policy Institute found that still tariffs under Trump helped preserve 1,200 US jobs in that sector. On the other hand, tariffs can raise costs. They can. A 2019 study by the Federal Reserve excuse me, estimated that tariffs cost the average US household $400 more per year in higher prices. Now, again, if you think about that, why is it more expensive when tariffs do that? If we're looking at the history and how manufacturing was here and then left, of course it's going to be like that because you don't have enough people here producing that steel or textiles or whatever it is. You don't have enough Americans and American businesses producing that stuff. So it's going to be expensive. That's the thing that they're omitting, depending on what you're watching. They're omitting from that. Like, yeah, it's going to, costs are going to grow and all that shit because, if you're trying to bring it back here, we don't have enough people here, or we don't have enough companies or workers here, or people that's trained to work in these fields. We don't have enough. So, of course, it's going to cost because we're still going to have to import it in, and we're going to have to take that hit until we train people or there's entrepreneurs that will build these industries here. We have farmers here, these black farmers. This is a great opportunity when we're talking about food processing. A great opportunity to see, okay, what do we have? Like I even thought like coffee beans. What areas in the U.S. can a farmer, um, you know, produce coffee beans? We can. It's not that they have to be in other countries, right? We can produce a coffee bean here. Like just thinking about that. Not saying that you got to go out and do it, but I'm just giving you how my mind thought about that, when I'm thinking about tariffs and bringing back production here to America. Okay. Now, for Black women who are already earning just 64 cents to the white male dollar, higher consumer costs are painful. So not only were you getting discriminated against with pricing, that's why it matters to continue to vote correctly. Even if you're going to vote Republican, it still has to make sense because everybody ain't trying to be a housewife, right? Some just want to do work. They just want to be in there. It's fun. It feels good. Like that's literally sometimes it at the end of the day. It's not about trying to compete or thinking you're a man or whatever they want to make up. Sometimes you just like doing that stuff. Men, women, we're just not monoliths. No matter who wants to paint that, right? We're just not. As you go into nature, it's just not like that. Okay. But the long term benefit comes if tariffs actually succeed in bringing factories, contracts, and supply chains back home. Again, the opportunity. If that happens, the opportunity is not in shopping cheaper, it's in owning production. So, again, Black women, we can't be promoting that we have $1 trillion in spending power and you don't understand what the hell spending means. That means you're going out spending money, ma'am, and you're not seeing the return on that. Now, could you be investing? My mindset, probably my early 20s changed to investing. I started to see if I'm buying my clothes, the food I'm eating, if I bought a car, whatever, I'm investing into myself, right? So, am I investing when I buy certain stuff? Right, where it's gonna have longevity, or I can use it a couple of times, or if I needed to rent it out, right? When we talk about the gig economy or the sharing economy, like your Ubers and your Airbnbs, that wasn't supposed to be some type of forever job. It's not even a job. I don't even see that as true employment, in my opinion. It's not an employment thing. That's something to hold people over because when the crash came, this was a new type of business model that would help anybody to utilize certain stuff around their house to make money, right? To hold them over. But it's not a form of employment. And now you have a lot of damn immigrants that were able to come here working under the radar in these things. And now the whole sharing economy apps are saturated and people want to complain about tips. They want to complain about using their cars and stuff. They don't even have to do it anymore. If that's what the issue is, stop doing it. People are going to still be riding buses and trains like we've been doing. So you got to understand, people try to put emotional stuff on you that still doesn't make technical sense, right? To have you spend money, right? So the auto industry tells a similar story. Tariffs on imported auto parts from China, often around 25% since 2018, were designed to push production back to the US. The result, according to the American Automotive Policy Council, automakers invested billions in domestic plants between 2018 and 2022, with Ford, GM, and Tesla all expanding US facilities. Electric vehicle battery plants alone, often incentivized alongside tariff protections, are projected to create over 100,000 new jobs by 2030. So this EV vehicle push, I know California was trying to push electric vehicles. Some people don't like it, here. They fought against it. But the truth is, doing that would create more jobs and a cleaner environment, right? That's the underlying thing you have to see. Not you can look at pros and cons of stuff, right? But you can't let media and people push that, oh no, it's going to do this. But you can see why electric vehicles would be possibly better for our environment compared to continuing to have gas guzzlers and smogs. Because smogs, remember, I mean, that's a huge thing in America. Getting your smog test, smog checks, that's important, right? So we're looking at still going towards more of a clean environment, clean energy, and more jobs. When you see people say, oh, these jobs are going away because AI and all that, black women, I need you to understand. I need you to focus here. When they say those jobs are going away, if you're looking forward, future forward, you know there's going to be jobs on the other side and probably paying way better. And you have a new skill unlocked for yourself, like it's a video game. It's a new skill unlocked, okay? So stop thinking because I don't have employment or whatever. Some of those jobs we need to move forward. We need to get to higher paying jobs, high revenue jobs, high revenue entrepreneurship for Black women. Okay. Now, for Black women, this is not just about working on the line. Okay. It's about supply chain consulting, parts distribution, robotics integration, safety compliance, and even cafeteria and wellness contracts tied to these massive plants. In Detroit, Black women entrepreneurs already run small manufacturing firms. Here, I'm going to say that again. In Detroit, Black women entrepreneurs already run small manufacturing firms, but access to federal contracts and supplier diversity programs remain underutilized. Meaning, how are we voting in Detroit? I'm not saying, again, I don't want to just bring every systemic issue as our issue. I like to know, why are we voting in a certain way, because some of this stuff leads back to how are we voting? How are we voting for the certain policies? To me, that's what this is also screaming, right? And when you're voting, you have checks and balances in place. So why there's not audits? Who slowed down on the audits? That now we have certain industries that are just total fuckery now, right? Tariffs, when combined with Biden's CHIPS, and Inflation Reduction Act subsidies, mean the U.S. is actively reshoring critical auto and semiconductor supply chains. The opportunity is to ensure Black women aren't just consumers of cars, but suppliers, managers, and innovators in the production ecosystem. So you have to see the opportunity, Black women, and why the current administration is putting these tariffs out there And what are the opportunities of productivity, manufacturing, processing, distribution, supply chain, and so on and so forth that is out there that we need to take advantage of. Okay? Now, here's an opportunity that you have to recognize. And here's the reality about it, okay? Tariffs are not forever. This is why, Black women, you have to take advantage of the opportunities exposed to you. Trade deals shift with every administration, but when tariffs are in place, they create short to mid-term openings. Over the next 5 to 10 years, industries protected by tariffs will need domestic partners to survive. That's where Black women can make power plays, creating logistics firms, packaging companies, compliance auditing services, and contract manufacturing operations. Think of it as this way: tariffs are like temporary walls. If we use the time they buy to get in position, certifications, partnerships, capital pooling, and that's what we talked about, ROSCAs amongst Black women and other women. Then, when the walls come down, we're already in the room. So, this is how you prepare yourself. This is why going to school, getting an education, getting some skills matter. Who cares what the hell your counterparts are saying? If they're not doing the work and seeing it, then who cares? You can't keep tearing yourself down because they keep being bitter and having hissy fits about it. The greater society cares about bringing work here so people can work and do their things and live happily, pursuit of happiness, right? So this is a rare alignment of policy and opportunity, and it requires intentional strategy from us. So food tariffs, for example, often fly under the radar, but they shape everything from grocery prices to farming opportunities. The USDA reports that tariffs on imported dairy, sugar, and certain grains keep foreign prices higher and encourage domestic processing. For example, tariffs on sugar imports, sometimes exceeding 100%, ensure US sugar processors stay competitive. Similarly, tariffs on EU dairy and Canadian softwood lumber during disputes reshape trade flows in favor of US firms. Black women are already disproportionately represented in food entrepreneurship, from catering and restaurants to packaged goods. But tariffs make domestic food processing and distribution more competitive, creating openings in warehousing, trucking, packaging, and export compliance. According to USDA census data, Black women farmers are still fewer than 2% of US producers, but they are one of the fastest growing groups in urban farming and value added processing. Tariffs, combined with Buy American Food contracts for schools, prisons, and hospitals, create a lane for Black women to anchor themselves in the billion-dollar food supply chain, not just as sellers, but as processors and distributors. So again, I'm showing you, Black women, to you who are entrepreneurs, you who are farmers, you got to get on the ball. You can't be out here worried about soy and all this other bullshit. Again, if you're looking ahead, you got to see, okay, yeah, we're bringing back certain stuff here, certain food processing. How do I get my food to a processing plant? Who's going to distribute that food outside of going to a farmer's market, right? That's how you have to think about this, Black women who are entrepreneurs or who are just looking to pursue certain careers in this so you can take advantage of this whole tariff ordeal. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. Now, let's look at, while tariffs are designed to, here, let me scroll down a little bit. While tariffs are designed to protect industry, they don't automatically protect communities. So, here's some cons. From 2008 to 2023, homelessness rose nationally when Black women disproportionately with Black women disproportionately affected. HUD data shows black people make up 40% of the homeless population, despite being only 13%, give or take, of the population. And black women with children are among the most at risk. Do you understand, black women? Do you understand that you're voting, you're the training, worrying about a nigga all day, worrying about just looking cute or certain stuff. You know what I'm saying? Worrying about things that aren't pushing you forward is the issue here. It's straight up the issue. Outside of systemic stuff, this is the issue, right? This matters because without community focused economic policy, tariffs can end up enriching corporations while leaving ordinary black women still in poverty. So we have a poverty crisis. You got some black women are working their ass off. Some black women are actually enjoying the fruits of their labor, right? And then you have some black women who are still in poverty, still dependent on certain stuff, still waiting on someone to come and save or help them, still and giving stuff to the pastors and all that stuff, and ain't seeing no policies, no movement in your community, still keeping you down and dumb, still getting you emotionally involved in voting for other people to come and take over your communities, for you to not have checks and balances for your SBA loans because you're an American trying to start an American business and you're not even getting the funding needed to do what you need to do. If domestic production is reshored, we must demand that federal, state, and local governments tie those contracts to community hiring, training, and black women owned businesses. So when this is happening, we have to ensure that the current administration is not only saying, "Oh, I'm going to bring them here." We got to make sure, yo, what are we doing in the community? You stop Job Corps, right? But what are you replacing that with? What initiatives are you bringing to certain communities to get us working as Americans? Because we got to know you're focused on Americans. Seeing our communities like that should know how America fucking forgot about Americans. That's literally what that should show, right? Otherwise, tariffs become just another protection for corporations. So voting matters, black women. Policy changes. You can't just be out here voting for no reason. You just can't do that. Here's where immigration intersects directly with tariffs and labor. Since 2008, both Democratic and Republican administrations leaned heavily on immigrant labor, especially in agriculture, meatpacking, construction, and increasingly in tech. The H-1B visa program brought in 85,000 high skilled foreign workers annually, with more than 70% going to IT roles. Trump's administration attempted to tighten access, proposing fees up to $100,000 per application, arguing it would push firms to hire domestic talent because we do have it. We have the skills, we have the talent. I don't care what they're trying to promote, what they're trying to push. We literally have it here. And there are definitely black women who should be hired, like literally American women. Like I don't understand why they would even pass it up, right? Biden reversed many of those restrictions, reopening wider pipelines for immigrant hires. So we got to understand the playing field, ladies. Why are we voting for someone who's continuing to further detriment you and make it look like we are the world, right? Why does this matter for black women? Because every time a firm fills roles with visa workers, it reduces demand for domestic talent. So that should be a problem. You should have a problem with that as an American black woman, especially in areas where black women are underrepresented but capable, like supply chain analytics, coding, or compliance. Tariffs are designed to reshore production, but if labor policies still lean towards cheaper immigrant hiring, black women risk being excluded again. That's literally what's happening to your community, black women. That's what's happened. And you're not seeing it. You're not looking at it. You wanted to go fight for bail reform, for criminals, for people who you fucking know that always got some shit going on, and you're not promoting the young black women who are going to college. doing their things. You know what we started to do? We started to tell those black women that's what they get. They should have focused on men. You're allowing the subset of our community tell black women who are pursuing education because they need it to survive. They cannot depend on the counterparts. And some of you sided with that. And now there's an opportunity here and you're not going to obtain it. You're not going to go get it because you're promoting we need to be in a relationship so much so. Like that should have absolutely nothing to do with your career, with what you're trying to promote. Everything is revealing itself. I'm laying this out so it can reveal why we have not been taking care of ourselves, black women, in every which way, on every level. We have not. That's why political strategy matters. Supporting policies that both reshore industries and audit hiring practices ensures that tariffs don't just enrich corporations, but translate into jobs and contracts for Americans, especially Black women. So when you see this happening, you have to ensure that there's some auditing that's going to be in place. We cannot be dumb about how people are being hired over your own, and you know that is illegal practices. You know, goddamn, it's illegal. You know it, and you're just like, well, I'd rather give up my check. I'd rather give up my opportunity. You see, you're giving those things up. We have to be better, Black women, at our political stance. Now, let's dig deep a little bit deeper on what I say audits and accountability when it comes to these policies and tariffs policies. One reason Black women have not benefited from past industrial waves is lack of accountability. That's a favorite word that goes around social media in the Blackverse, right? Both Democrats and Republicans have allowed corporations to outsource jobs. So, again, if you're being unbiased, you can see how both parties contributed to the mess that an administration appears to be attempting to fix. Hired undocumented workers and bypass audits. So, a lot of these businesses have not been audited properly. They have not. This is why people can just come on over the border and get a job and tell an American, because you ask for $1 more, we're going to let you go and give you the severance package or whatever. The Government Accountability Office, GAO, has repeatedly reported weak enforcement of labor laws. That's one of the greatest things we have in this country is our labor laws. All of us fought for better labor laws. And when companies are trying to weasel out of it, we have to make sure things are being enforced. Without enforcement, tariffs simply raise costs while companies cheat the system. So again, other than systemic issues, if we're not voting, if we're not demanding that audits, that training, that all these things are in place so that Americans can benefit. Now you got this mess where it seems one of the sides are trying to continue to promote this propaganda, and you're not seeing the bigger picture here, Black women. This is why, yeah, you need to stand down and sit back and observe and prepare yourself while all this chaos is going on. Critics of tariffs argue they raise consumer costs. And that's true in the short run. Again, if you have been paying attention, I remember Trump saying that things may get tough for a little while. Why? Because they have to shift things back on this soil. So you're going to feel the cost a little. But what does that mean? Those costs can come down if we have the entrepreneurs and American businesses are getting the support they need to to have better supply chains, distributions, production. You can these things can be better, but they're not. And then you have people running to start podcasts and stuff because they don't want to look to do any of this type of groundwork. The true things that makes America who we were as far as a superpower, right? A 2019 Federal Reserve study found that U.S. consumers and importers bore nearly the full cost of the tariffs on Chinese goods, raising consumer prices by 0.3% overall. But what gets lost is who benefits from the long term adjustment. Domestic steel, auto, and food producers gain contracts, market share, and incentive to expand. Again, the domestic things you need to see as the opportunities, Black women. The winners are those positioned to capture the domestic demand that tariffs create. So that's why it's important. If you need a dashboard or your bookmark it on your phone, on your computer, you need to know what imports are getting tariffs and how you, as an American woman, as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants a better career, better life, getting out of poverty, not having to depend on what people say about welfare, Section 8. You want opportunities. And I'm speaking specifically to millennial women, Gen X. There's some of you women who still want to get out there. Some of you women are very, very smart. You were some of the women that helped us through the line. But I'm telling millennial women specifically, and Gen Z, if you're listening, these are the things you want to pursue, and you want to pursue them with all your might, all your focus, just concentrated focus. That means you got to cut off a lot of shit if you want to get to the top, right? For Black women, the danger is clear. Without preparation, we remain only consumers paying higher prices instead of entrepreneurs capturing higher contracts. So we have to see, is this going to be a new opportunity where America actually works with other Americans, its citizens, so that we can capture and rebuild, restructure, and reset these industries back here? With preparation, tariffs can flip into leverage. Example, Black owned logistics firms that step into distribution gaps caused by reshoring can capture market share worth millions. Another example, compliance consulting firms run by Black women can help smaller US firms navigate new tariff regimes. The question isn't whether tariffs cost or benefit America, it's who positions themselves to catch the redirected flow of money. So you have to position yourself. This is how I continue to increase my salary, get better skills because I position myself. I've stuck for something for a period of time to gain some skills so I can position myself for the next level that I was obtaining. That's how I got into the cybersecurity field. I started, you could say from the bottom, building computers, learning that stuff, knowing that the bigger vision was to understand if I built a computer and someone wanted to, do something malicious to that computer or those parts or that motherboard, when they send certain servers over, you want to understand that from a different perspective as a cybersecurity professional. And I'm just speaking for myself, how someone can do something like that, right? Versus someone saying, "Oh, I just want to go straight into cybersecurity," and not knowing how to do some of the bottom things like basic tickets, understanding the environment that you're working in, the issues that you're going to always see, and then you get so many tickets on it. Now you're like, "Here's the solution." These things, these patterns, behavior, all this stuff matters. That's why if you're not about your craft, Black women, your skill, and you're worried about all this other stuff, you're getting stressed out. Now we have the health crisis, economic issues. There's Black women who still want to work. They just don't have the opportunity. No one's putting these training programs out there for them. Why the hell are we checking off if you are Hispanic or not on some of these job things? Like, what the hell does that even mean now? So, and that stuff didn't come until the Democrats came. I haven't seen that only through the Democratic Party that I see those that start to show up when you're filling out job applications and it's asking you your racial background. Like, what? Let's move on. Now, here's some strategic industries for Black women to look into. So I gave you some STEM, I gave you some blue collar industries. Now let's look at when we're talking about tariffs and the industries that they want to bring back here, they want to reshore here on our soil. Which industries present the strongest opportunities for Black women under current tariffs? The Department of Commerce data points to steel and aluminum processing. U.S. has existing capacity. Food processing and packaging. Tariffs on imports make domestic plants more viable. Logistics and distribution. Tariffs create bottlenecks that need local solutions. Compliance and auditing. New regulations create demand for consultants. These are not just factories, they are multi billion dollar industries with contracting opportunities that Black women can own. Tariffs shift the demand back home, and we must insert ourselves into that demand. This brings us to strategy. Okay. Tariffs are a double edged sword again. They can hurt consumers in the short term, but they can also rewire or reset markets in the long term. So that's the goal of this administration. And that's why they want to continue because they feel that for the past few decades, we haven't been focused on America. That's why they're doing this. This is why some people are going to feel it right now, right? The Department of Commerce notes that reshoring projects surged after tariffs, with over 1,800 companies announcing new U.S. production sites between 2018, and 2022. Each project created ripple effects across trucking, warehousing, food service, HR, safety compliance, and local contracts. So, Black women, you need to take entrepreneurship very seriously. Young Black women, you need to look at this very seriously. When you get a job, I think young Black women should get into these fields as far as job opportunities, skill opportunities. And then if you decide you want to be an entrepreneur, you can do that or continue to move up if that's another opportunity you want, or you can just stay where you're at, but you're making better money and you have skills now. And you are an American now contributing to the greater society. So we can't be here moping and sobbing if I just lost my job, blah, blah, blah. That means we got to turn up. This is where Black women entrepreneurs can move beyond survival into dominance. By aligning with supplier diversity programs, federal contracting opportunities, and cooperative models, Black women can claim space in reshored industries. Whether it's auto parts distribution in Detroit, steel safety compliance in Pittsburgh, or food processing in Atlanta, the lane exists, Black women. The key is political awareness. And that's what I'm saying. Some of the stuff that we're talking about, complaining about, I don't think we fully understood. I understood some things. I'm not saying I'm this expert, but I don't think a lot of you understand. You just vote, you just do it. And then it seemed like the Democrats only focused on crime as if that's the only thing affecting us. And you got people who need fucking jobs, who need better skills. We still got HBCUs, middle schools, elementary, still named after African American people. And some of them are getting churnt out and switched to something Hispanic. Like, that's fucking crazy. And we're allowing those schools, the learning and all that to go down. We're not fighting hard enough. Millennial women, we got to fight. I'm sorry. That's just how it's going to be for the next few decades. If we want to get to a better life, and then we want to have behind us our children to also have that better life, you got to think hundreds of years beyond you. That's how you got to think. It's not about no man and how they think. It's really not. That's not how societies were all built. Every society wasn't just the center being a man. I'm sorry. It's not. And if you do that, unfortunately, your counterparts aren't gone to do these things. This is why it's important for us to take this mantle and continue on and make sure we're voting correctly. We understand the policies. We're calling our representatives and cussing them out if we need to. We're showing up at those meetings. We're talking about, we're continuing to be in their face because if they're going to be for America, this is just what it has to be. Now they didn't push you out the way. They don't want to take anything you're saying as serious. They don't want to do any of that. And the only people who seems to be doing that for at least is the Republican Party right now because they are American first. This is our country. Why are we willingly giving it up? You're giving it up in vain. You really are, Black women. Tariffs with strategy create history. This time with Black women at the helm. So, supporting leaders who pair tariffs with domestic training, auditing immigrant hiring, and ensuring access to capital. If these things will work, and if they ain't got workers, that's your opportunity to be an auditor, and don't be going in there being nice because they weren't nice to you this whole entire time. You got certain subset people want to push black and brown, and we ain't seen no mass hiring underneath their businesses. We ain't seen that, but I know we've hired them. We gave them a leg up when they came here. Every American did. How you think they even got to where they got? And we ain't seeing the ROI in that. You got to be shitting me. So that's why this administration is like, we're not playing no more. You got to get with it. They're not playing. Now, let's look at the certifications and contracts, okay? One of the fastest lanes into tariff protected industries is through certifications. Your education matters, Black women. Your skills matter. Black women can position as minority owned business enterprises, women owned small businesses, or HUBZone certified firms. These certifications give priority access to federal and state contracts, meaning you only also need to be working with people, or if you're working alongside people, they can't just be your man, they can't just be your mama. They need to be people who are certified. They need to be people who went out there and did the disciplined actions just like you to get to where you are. We can want our family, we can want certain people to do things because we see the value in them doing that, the potential in them doing that. But at the end of the day, it's up to them. But you have many other Americans from all backgrounds who are still ready to come and work for you if you provide them that opportunity. They are ready to come in there and work for you. So this is why it's important that you don't just get somebody to be aside you and they don't got none of these certifications. They just got an idea, or they just think, oh, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. Like they just want a cookie, right? Go get a certification, then you come and tell me. If tariffs bring factories back, those factories need packaging, cleaning, HR, transport, IT, compliance. All things Black women already excel in. We are already doing these things. When your counterparts laughed at you and try to tear you down about you getting the education and going to go to work and you're working for the white man, this is what you've been doing the whole entire time. They don't even know that these are the things you've actually been doing. You've been doing these things. So it's easier for you to go and run a corporation now because you learned all these things. But are you going to learn them in vain? Or are you going to take action with the opportunities ahead of us? Because we are already there. Now it's moving forward, right? All things Black women already excel in. Now, by securing the certifications, we ensure that we are not just knocking on the door, but being handed the keys. Again, screw all the DEI talks and all that stuff. Again, I know when you're unbiased and you remove the racist stuff and you remove the MAGAs and and the counterparts who just straight up haters. When you remove all that stuff, you see the core of what America is built on, right? There's no way you go to a school and you just got in, right? Like, come on now. Let's be for real. Don't get certifications just to waste them, just to have them holding in your pocket, just to say I want to frame it and put it on my wall or my office. It ain't even about that. It's to show, yo, I can go out and get any opportunity I want because I didn't spend the time. I had the discipline. A lot of you, even single mothers, you've been disciplined to pursue higher education while you have to raise your own kids. Do not do it in vain, right? Don't do it in vain. The opportunities are coming back here to America, and we have to be prepared and ready to take them on, Black women. Now, building capital collectively. Now, a major barrier for Black women has always been access to capital. And this is not solely your fault. It's not, right? But we have to look at how do we get around those barriers. Now, we have some Black women who have groups that are our ROSCAs, but we can also learn from other women. And like I said, again, being an American woman, you have a huge advantage doing something like this, right? But on top of that, we also have to ensure that people are being audited. Banks are being audited. We can't just have them doing studies and saying, oh, Black people ain't getting this funding and nothing happens. A slap on the wrist, like Obama did. He allowed a slap on the wrist to those banks during the 2008 crash, and there was no true recovery plans in place. They just said, we're just going to bring in immigrants, overlooking that you had to recover for your houses that were lost, all those assets that you built up. So you wonder why the gap is the way it is. But tariffs create urgency. Industries must find domestic partners fast. This is where pooling resources, cooperative financing, and ROSCA style lending circles can give Black women leverage. If 10 women pool $10,000 each, that's $100,000 seed money to bid on contracts. Banks may hesitate, but collective capital breaks the dependence. And again, we have technology today, and I'm telling you, with this whole crypto thing, this blockchain thing, and stable coins, which again, our president is moving forward with stable coins, which just needs regulation, which is coming, right? But when you're looking at that, that's about to shift the whole financial industry. Some people are even saying the US is trying to get rid of its debt by going into the crypto currency industry, financial industry, DeFi, they would call it. But you have to see that as the opportunity, Black women. You can't just be like, oh, crypto is bad. And like I've had people who just, I knew they didn't read about it. They didn't deep dive like me. You know, I spent years when Bitcoin was early, like understanding the technology, reading the white papers, understanding all that to know that, yo, it is not just about crypto either. It's about the blockchain. But you got too many foolish Black women out here that only want to hear it from their counterparts' mouth who didn't spend that time, who still hasn't produced nothing. That's what they want to do. That's what they rather do. We are having zero tolerance on those type of Black women as well. Zero tolerance. Because it's been us that have been holding it together this entire time while you're being persecuted, while you're going through damage campaigns online, offline, while this is happening. So it just has to be it's revealed now. People ain't stupid, people know, but you got people who are just ignorant and they'll just allow any type of media to manipulate them, just like it manipulated you. We have better cameras today. We have better phone cameras, so you don't even need to rely on media today. You can create your own media to counter those people. Your own journalistic channel. Look at what Don Lemon and a few other people who were newscasters or journalists. They got their own thing now on YouTube. So the landscape has changed. And if you're not realizing those opportunities, Black women, and we're steady just okay with gossip channels, then you're missing it. You're going to miss out. You're going to miss out. And you don't even have to miss out. This is how Latina, Asian, and African immigrant groups have scaled through pulling and reinvestment. When you look at those women, I can appreciate how they come here and they just hit the ground running. They just figure out a way to get their money in. They don't, some of them don't even wait on their man either. They don't be waiting on them because they know here in this country, women like us has helped to make a way. Black women and white women have helped to make a way for other women to come to this country and be able to progress or feel some type of freedom. It was us. They want to attack feminism and all that. These are people who don't even know what that is. These are people who want you to go 50-50, but attacking feminism. Like, you cannot demean and belittle your education for people who are confused like that, who saying contradictive things and don't even realize they're contradicting what the hell they're saying. So tariffs buy us time, Black women. Collective capital ensures we don't miss the window. There are Black women who are working in higher paying jobs, higher salaries, who have the money and want to invest into something, not just real estate. We can't just be promoting real estate because that's not the only asset that we need to own anymore. We need to own businesses, corporations, plants, manufacturing plants, robotics. We need to own these things, assets. We need to think like American women, like Americans, but we're not. We can't see everything as damning and oh, this and that. It's because you're allowing certain people to affect you with their crab mentality. And now you're feeling like you can't go out and pursue stuff. Have the courage. You've already had the courage to do these things already. You've already done this stuff. Now, policy choices and political power. Let's go right back to that because this, I'm telling you, this is the reason why we're experiencing some of the things we're experiencing. It's not because oh white people doing this. It's because how we're voting, ladies. It's how we're looking at the votes. If we're not understanding what we're voting for, right? Tariffs are political tools. Democrats have historically prioritized globalization and immigration. It's just the facts. Right underneath your nose, right while you were looking them straight in your face. While Republicans have leaned toward tariffs and enforcement. Neither party has fully centered Black women, which of course, this is here, but it's not to say Black women have to be the center. It should be Americans, but because Black women have the double whammies, right? Being a woman and being Black, we get affected more so. Yet we're the ones holding on, pursuing, continuing to pursue, still competing with what we're being handed to us. We're still competing out there, still doing it. And people are hating on that. That all that gotta go. They're not you should be prideful as an American woman that you've been doing what you've been doing. I'm prideful as an American woman that I'm able to go out here and compete and work good jobs, work among good coworkers, and say that I'm an American at the end of the day. Like I am. I've always been prideful of myself. There has been times I've been disappointed in my country. I have a right to be disappointed, right? But I keep that as my core. That's what we are. That's what we've been building this whole entire time, whether under duress or out of duress. So when we say neither party has fully centered black women, we got to understand that crime has affected us. Banking has affected us. The health care system has affected us. We have to go to our politicians and say, what the fuck? If you're not fucking seeing us, this is how you're never going to help everybody else because you're not putting us up there. You're not reinvesting into us like you should. Our counterparts just want reinvestment, and for what? What are you doing? Why do you think people ain't just tearing you down? We see that in our community. We see the results. We don't have to go to systemic stuff to point out the issues we're having with Black women and our healing and who we have around us and the environments that we're continuing to perpetuate over and over again and trying to protect things that are detrimental to our economic progress as well. That's why political literacy matters. A lot of us are politically illiterate. Get out of your feelings, Black women, and know we are politically illiterate. And why? Because under our noses, this is what happened. That further put us in positions of homelessness, health crises. Black women must vet candidates not by party, but by their commitment to American labor audits, HBCU investment, and community first contracting. We are owed this as Americans. Reparations is one thing, but when you can go into each of these areas, as I'm laying out for you in these presentations, you literally have stuff that you can take to these candidates and say, hey, I need you to change stuff here. You need to affect change in this area. So again, you need to vet candidates not by party, but by their commitment to American labor audits, HBCU investment, and community first contracting. We can't be having senators wanting to only sign policies or bills that would supply more money to countries who are in the middle of fucking war. Supplying more funds outside of the country while this shit is going on, while homelessness is still on the rise, while there's health crisis. And now when you have a president who is appearing to be America first, now they want to tear this person down. Again, I'm not saying this person is the best candidate, but you have to understand the underlying stuff that is going on. You can't let media affect you enough where you're picking either side, because both sides be doing some stupid shit. Both sides say stupid shit. Like there's no way, like you got to articulate yourself better to get through to people. Otherwise, people wouldn't know this stuff. Or it's omitted. It's making you feel sorry. Our votes must demand, if tariffs are in place, how will Black women benefit? And that's how you got to see it outside of just the policy. I just kind of laid this out for you. How will we benefit? Who ensures corporations don't sidestep us? Without political pressure, tariffs can pass us by. Now, tariffs and global competition. Tariffs don't just protect America, they reposition us against global competitors. China, for example, subsidizes its industries, undercutting US producers. Tariffs are America's attempt to level the playing field. But here's the bigger picture. When the US fights for industrial dominance, Black women can either be strategic allies inside the economy or sideline spectators. And Black women being a spectator is not the tea. It's not what you want. It ain't it. Go get it. Go and fucking get it. We're telling you now, go get it. If America wants to compete globally, then investing in the domestic talent of Black women, the most educated group of women in America, per the NCES 2020, is the most logical move this administration can take. We are not a charity case. Black women aren't looking for handouts. I don't care what your counterparts are saying, because obviously everything I'm showing you is that we're not getting handouts like that. We're not. Food stamps, and that's not a handout. You know how much people barely be getting? That's nothing. What are they even talking about? What information are they even presenting to back up their claims? And you're just falling for that shit. Just like you fell for voting for people who are not benefiting us here. We don't want charity. We want better policies. We want things that benefits us as Americans. We are the missing link in the US comeback story. That's why you have to go after the Trumps, the Stephen Millers, the Nancy, not Nancy Grace. She's definitely one of my fave crime channels. But Nancy Mace, Department of Justice. You know, all these things matter. You have to have zero tolerance moving forward, Black women. Zero tolerance. Now, let's look at a case study for the auto industry, because that was something huge, right? The auto industry illustrates the stakes. In the mid 20th century, auto plants provided steady middle wage class wages, fueling Black family stability in Detroit and beyond. When globalization shifted production overseas, those jobs evaporated. Today, tariffs on imported steel and auto parts could incentivize more domestic production. Black women, think big. There is nothing wrong with you getting a facility to do this. Don't think less of yourself. Don't think you cannot accomplish it. Don't think it's only for white people. It's not. I know some of y'all ain't Christians already defeating yourselves and saying this is only them, or oh, we can only get jobs from them. For a time, you may. For a time. But we are Americans. We should be thinking on that scale moving forward. Corporations, our own facilities that we own, and we produce jobs. We produce production, supply chains. We have that going on. This is an opportunity that some people are just not going to get on, but you can, because you've already been spending your time disciplining yourself, going to study, going to learn these things, trying to get these jobs. You've already spent the time. Now you need to make sure there's audits and checks and balances in place so that people don't continue to try to screw you around because they're bitter or they have issues going on. Today, tariffs on imported steel and auto parts could incentivize more domestic production. That is the underlying thing that this current administration is trying to get back to. And this is why they want to continue. If once this president leaves, because this will be the 8 years, they want to continue by bringing in other Republicans with the same mindset of American first. So that's what the goal is going to be continuing. You know, again, Democrats will lose if they don't start thinking this way. If the US truly reshapes auto supply chains, Black women can demand contracts in parts manufacturing. I just told you about 3D printing. I was already thinking about that years before this even came up, before I even truly understood this tariff situation. I was already thinking of how can I use a 3D printer to print a house? How can I use it to print parts and manufacture them? I was already designing, I call them innovation labs. Crazy thing is, I designed them for other countries, not realizing it should have been designed for here, my home country. Innovation labs. So, if the US truly reshapes auto supply chains, again, Black women can demand contracts in parts manufacturing, EV battery recycling, or logistics. This isn't theory, it's deja vu. The question is, will we let history repeat as workers only or seize the moment as owners? This is the difference in this time. Black women have to be entrepreneurs. We have to be that. We can't settle. There's no settling. We have to be. Just like we had to be independent. We have to be. Nobody can tell you nothing. It is what it is. It's not your fault, right? It's not your fault. No matter how much they want to push you, it's not your fault. But you can heal yourself so that you don't feel like it's your fault. You can hear the way you can heal why you have an attitude. You can heal why you feel like you need to have an outburst. You can heal from that and learn better ways to counter it. When you're not learning those things and you're going with a subset who feel like, oh, I'm just gonna say what I say. I'm just gonna like, okay, well, you do that, and this is why you're not getting nowhere. Nobody wants to work with you. Now, Black Women's Opportunity Playbook. Now, I would say look at this in the next 5 to 10 years, getting started today. This is the perfect fourth quarter of 2025 that you can get started today and have an outlook for the next 5 and 10 years minimum. Hopefully it's beyond because again, we want these type of companies to last hundreds of years, right? You want them to be forever. But you got to look at this as a 5 to 10 year plan when you're getting things started. So to recap, tariffs are creating a 5 to 10 year window. Our playbook includes for Black women certified as MBEs, WOSBs, and HUBZones. Pool capital to bid on contracts. So you only want to work with Black women or other women who have certifications, degrees, they have the jobs. You want people who have shown and proved that discipline. Now, there's Black women who don't have that and they got money or whatever, but you need to make sure that they're still in alignment with a Black woman-led economy because you don't want them to center people and it has nothing to do with the greater outlook, the bigger vision, right? So target industries aligned with tariffs, steel, food, food processing, logistics, compliance. So these are industries you also want to target, Black women. Build skills through HBCUs, trade schools, and certifications. I promote HBCUs because again, you have over 40% of the students at those schools are Black women, meaning you want to learn. Some of our families pushed us to go to school. Why are we hearing from our counterparts that's trying to tear us down when your parents have told you to go to school, when other people told you you need to get your ass in school? Put your head in them books and not on them boys. Because when you're in them schools, if those guys that you want to be with or whatever aren't there already, then they're not for you, man. They're not for you. Even that needs to change. Hold politicians accountable for audits and contract equity. We can no longer allow Democrats to just flood our country and no checks are happening. Meaning, why are Black people losing jobs, losing contracts, local power, political power to people that ain't even from here? Something's wrong with that, Black women. You're casting your vote in vain. This is how we stop being consumers and start being controllers of supply chains. So we have to have a playbook and pilot yourself. Get into these fields. Get your daughters ready. Sometimes it's not about what they want to do. When I look at certain communities and they're like, no, you're going to be an engineer, a doctor, or whatever, you have to have that same mindset. You do. I'm sorry, but you do. If I was to have kids, I'm sorry, they're going to have to pursue something in a higher level field. And I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that they get the education, they get the access, the skills they need to go into a field so they don't end up in fucking poverty. They don't end up getting walked on by people who ain't even fucking from here. So, in closing, tariffs are more than taxes. They are signals. They tell us where America is being forced to reinvest. If you're keen, if you're observing, if you're going to get the information, if you're going to go party and do all this stuff, and you look up later and one of your friends are making it, they got money, they're traveling, they're doing all things they literally said they was going to do, because they wasn't looking at doing it just then and there. They wasn't looking at doing it tomorrow, but they said in 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be here and I'm never going to have to worry about the stuff that you probably are still worrying about. And you don't. You really don't. You really don't. So right now, we need to reinvest in ourselves, Black women, and we need to step up to the next level. We need to blow past the next level. If we watch closely, move strategically, and align our skills with policy, then tariffs become not just walls of protection, but doors of opportunity. Black women have carried America on our backs long enough. Now it's time to carry America forward as producers, owners, and architects of the next industrial wave. We also need to move in silence and make sure these things are heard. When we need to speak up, there will be those times. But we need to make sure that we're not voting because of manipulation of our emotions, voting because we're just trying to protect certain people and not protect children, not protecting ourselves. We're not focused on our health. We're not focused on getting out of poverty. This is why you go to school, so you can get the fuck out of poverty. Someone attacking that means they want you to suffer. It literally means they want you to suffer. How can you be okay with that? If you are okay with that, please go check into somebody's hospital, talk to a therapist, and release those issues that you dealt with, that you were betrayed by when you were young, when you were older, and get on track. You don't have to rely on prostitution. You don't have to, downplay yourself, your skills, your talent, your thought process. You don't have to downplay that for people because they want to feel bigger than you. You don't have to do that. You can remove yourself for those people. There's Black women and people out here who want to see you succeed. They want you to do your thing. But your voting also matters, because some of these situations, when you look at it, it's because of how we were voting. We have to do better, Black women. I appreciate you coming to my channel to check this out. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I will be back with another one soon. Have a great day, everyone.